All right, new day, new laptop to repair. This time we have an Alienware M16 R1. This is a 16-inch gaming laptop by Dell. This one was sent in to me because it's giving a 3.5 error code and the laptop won't start up. So that usually points to a power rail failure. I haven't looked at this yet. We're gonna look at it together and see if we can get this figured out. All right, so let's see. The first thing we're gonna check to see if it actually powers on, which it doesn't. So we're gonna go ahead and plug in the power meter here. We're gonna look for any current that's being pulled. So it went to 0.02, 0.31, and then went down to, it went to 90. To me, that looks like it's actually charging the battery. So normal plan of action when you plug in a gaming laptop or a lot of the other Dells, it will go up to 0.02, which turns on the LDO. LDO is like a linear voltage regulator that turns on the EC chip, and the EC chip's just a microcontroller that's running just a loop of code that's looking for different inputs, and it controls a lot of systems on the board, but turns on different power supplies and stuff like that. Once you have that, then it will jump to 0.2 and then jump up to 1 amp or whatever, and that's whenever you know that you get the pre-charge current for the battery, and then now it looks like it's charging the battery. But they said that it was giving a 3.5 error. We actually have our keyboard light on, so maybe it turned on automatically and this was not even charging the battery, it's actually powered on. I don't know, so we're gonna have to try that again. So I was thinking it was actually charging the battery. Okay, we actually do have a light code here. Let me zoom in. So we got 1, 2, 3 red, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blue. So a 3.5. All right, so if we look up what a 3.5 is, right here, 3.5 power rail failure. What that points to is like every laptop will have a lot of different power rails in it. So you'll have your main power rail, which is the charger voltage, so 19.5, 20 volts, or it's gonna be battery voltage. So like on a system like this would have like a 3-cell battery. And so the battery voltage would be around 12.6. So 13 volt rail, 13.5 volt rail. But this is a gaming laptop, so it usually runs at the 19.5 or 20 volts. So that's the main power rail. Then you'll have like a 5 volt power rail. You have a 3.3, you'll have a 1.8, you'll have a 1.2, you'll have a 1.05, and then you'll have your CPU and your GPU. So there's a lot of different voltages on there, a lot of different power rails. So if it's pointing to having a bad power rail or a shorted power rail, we need to figure out which one that is. The fact that the system's actually lighting up. So if we look here, we were getting the keyboard to light up a second ago. Yeah, we're getting the power button, and then we were getting the keyboard light. Now I'm not getting it. Well, earlier we were getting the keyboard light. So that automatically points to me thinking that the 5 volt rail is probably present, but maybe the 3.3 or 1.8 or memory or something like that, it's gonna be one of the lower ones. Okay, yeah, the keyboard's lighting up now. So this is without us even opening it up. We're reading current, we're reading the error code, and then, so now we can open it up and just kind of figure out which power rail is actually missing. Now on this particular machine, they're shipped with liquid metal on the CPU, and I've seen that the liquid metal will actually leak off whenever people store their laptop like this in their bag. So they're just kind of like, oh, we're just gonna stick it in our backpack and we'll leave it like this, and it will just kind of leak out. This is the same type of issue that was happening with the PlayStation 5. Whenever you would store it vertically, it would actually leak out. Now there is a dam on there, but the liquid metal, is liquefied, and so the gravity will start pulling it down, and there's a dam around the CPU that's supposed to keep it from leaking out, but I have seen it leak out and cause a power rail failure. Now I'm not saying that's what's happening with this. This is just, my knowledge of opening these things up. So I'll go ahead and get this bottom off. Looks like there was like a void warranty sticker here, which Dell doesn't put void warranty stickers. Plus that's, illegal. But anyway, let me get the bottom off and we'll be right back. So I'm looking at these screws while I'm pulling them out. You can definitely tell that somebody has been opening them. They are pretty marred up. So, just always something to pay attention to. Somebody has opened this up. They didn't tell me a story about this. They didn't say they were playing a game and then it died. So there's a chance that they were like, I'm upgrading my hard drive and then I blew out the board, but I'm not gonna tell you that portion of the story. I'm just gonna send it in and let you figure it out, which is fine. Sometimes I actually find it easier to figure out what's going on with the system when they don't tell me what's going on with it. Just saying, hey, doesn't work. Unless they, broke it, sent a screwdriver through something. But whenever they start telling me or trying to help me by diagnosing it, sometimes we'll throw off the diagnosis process. So, all right, here we go. So these M16 R1s are pretty powerful. They actually come with 4090s. I don't know what this one has. This one does have one of the higher end GPUs because it has this extra VRM cooler. But 3 fans, and then it has a 4th fan here that's actually blowing at its memory, which is pretty cool. And so there's one of the NVMe's. That's a Wi-Fi card there, but this one, it can actually hold 4 NVMe drives, 2 2280s, 2 2230s. You can actually run a 2230 also there. All right, so we got an OEM battery, there's the speakers, and everything else. I mean, it looks pretty clean. The fans aren't super, filled with fur stuff, but let me get this back cover off too so we can actually get in here. All right, got the back cover off. Let's get under the microscope. Let's take a look around real quick. So here's the DC jack. This is where the power comes in. So if we plug in our charger, and we're gonna put our meter in voltage mode. And so let me measure here. We should have our 20 volts, 19.5, 20 volts. And that comes through this big track. Can you see the track here? So it's this whole area. And then that's going to go to the other side of the board. So there's not much we can measure here, so I'm assuming all the MOSFETs are on the other side of the board. So on all these machines, you're going to have some MOSFETs that are like these, they act as a protection to protect the board, so it turns off the power of the rest of the board. Now we know that the main power rail is not shorted because the keyboard lights up, the power button lights up, so we know that that's not where the short's going to be. The short's going to be on one of the other power rails, probably, I don't know, the memory or something. We don't know at this particular moment what it is, so the unfortunate thing is I'm going to take this board out right now. So let's go ahead and get this board pulled out. Yeah, this machine actually has an extra VRM cooler right here for these higher end machines. Some of the lower end versions, like a 4070 or something like that, or 4060, will not have a second set of power stages for the GPU, but I think this must be like a 4090 or 4080 machine. So it has an extra cooler, which is pretty neat. All right, we got the motherboard out. These things have massive heat sinks on them. Super elaborate. They are pretty good design for actually staying pretty cool, so I am pretty happy with them. I haven't seen a lot of issues with these machines. Now, I don't know why we have a power rail failure, whether it's just like a capacitor that's bad, or if it's a MOSFET or some sort of spill or cracked component or what, but we're gonna have to get this heatsink off. We're gonna have to be very careful because there's a high likelihood that there's liquid metal under here, and we don't want that to drip everywhere, but we're gonna be very careful, and I will be cleaning off that liquid metal, and I will not be putting it back on. It is not something that I think is worth it because it ends up causing more issues than not. All right, so let's lift this off and see. And we do have liquid metal, so we have it on the CPU and GPU. Most of the time it's only on the CPU, but this time we have it on CPU and GPU. Pretty sure this one must be a 4090 because it must be trying to keep it very cool. We're gonna put some PM7950 on here instead of the liquid metal, which has shown to perform pretty close to it. It's not too far off from it. This one isn't the highest end version because it looks like we have a couple VRAM that's missing here, so there must be another version up from this. So this could be a 4080, I guess. All right, let's get under a microscope. Let's take a look. So first thing we're going to do is we're just do a visual inspection. We're just going to look around and see if we see any type of issue with the board. Cracked components or burnt components. I want to make sure that this wasn't leaking. That all looks good. Let me take this cover off real quick so we can look underneath this. All right, so here are some of the power stages for the GPU, and we have another set on the other side. So that all looks fine. Let's look over here. Okay, so here are the power stages for the CPU. And you can see there's a little bit of this liquid stuff on here. That's not a big deal. That is going to be the little foam pads. They like to ooze out a little bit of stuff. So that's just to keep those cool. Ooh, what do we have here? Is it an ant? What do you think? Looks like an ant. All right, we have an ant in here, guys. I don't know what that means, but we'll have to add that to our notes to keep track of. There's the PD controller. That's what handles these USB-Cs. That's the Thunderbolt controller. We've got some hairs in here. Does that mean somebody's been in here? All right, let's keep looking around real quick. I think these are for that's gonna be for the RGB keyboard. There's the BIOS. There's the EC chip. This might be the battery charging circuit. So this might be the 3 volt and the 5 volt power rails over here. Okay, so those are some current sense resistors we're going to be testing there. That's the power management chip. That's what handles the protection MOSFETs, the charging of the battery, the power to the system, basically the main power rail. So those are all things we're going to be looking at. Some VRAM, power. Okay, so we made it all the way back around. Let me look at this junction board real quick, or daughter board. Okay, looks okay. Let me flip this guy over. We've already kind of looked on this side, but we're gonna look again. The thing about this is, you know, we're doing a quick once over, but it's hard to see. I mean, these components are so tiny, and especially if you're looking for like a cracked capacitor or something like that, it is kind of hard unless you know the kind of the area that it's gonna be at. I look at these things all day long. Fresh eyes sometimes help. So it is the morning right now, so I am a little fresher than like whenever I've been working 10 hours, 11 hours, and I'm trying to fix a board at the end of the day. And sometimes I miss some stuff, and you guys seen those videos for sure. Look at this. Look at that, guys. What is that? I see a resistor missing right here. I'm assuming it's a resistor. I'm glad we were able to see that. This is the Tron lights for the back cover, I believe. So at some point, someone must have opened this up and went, just rip that off. I don't know if that's going to cause a whole power rail to be gone, but you know, you see how we have these little resistors here? I mean, that could be a capacitor, but we'll look at it, donor board. But everything's a piece of evidence, right? So we're going to test that. Just keep looking around. This may be another failed customer repair, basically, or upgrade. I've been getting a lot of those lately, where it's the customer that broke it and the machine didn't break on its own. I mean, granted, I do see plenty of failed machines, but usually they're a lot older than this, so why would this be broken already? This is like a, I want to say a 2023 model, maybe? So, about 2 years old. Okay, so that's the only thing I see, unless you guys saw something else. Here, let me move this DC jack out of the way. So that's all I got so far. So here's what we're gonna do next. You know, to know which power rail failed, we wanna figure out if our 3 volt is there, if 5 volts there, we wanna figure out if our 1.2 is there. We wanna go through all the different power rails and see which one's missing. If we're not able to kind of figure it out by just measuring going, hey, that one's missing, then we can also put on a thermal camera. We might have a shorted power rail. And that's the other thing, we could just measure right now and just see if any power rails are shorted. Let's do that actually, because then we don't have to try to pull out thermal cameras and all that junk. I want people to be able to do this at home. So we're gonna put our meter in continuity mode where it beeps if you touch the probes together. And the easiest thing to do is just find where all the coils are. So here's a coil right here. So this is gonna be an output of a power stage. And so this is probably the battery charger, but we have no short there. Here's another little tiny coil right here. So we're gonna use that one, nothing. Here's another coil here. We got no beeping. What we don't want is a beep, okay? So that one's beeping and it's at 16 ohms. Now 16 ohms isn't like super low. That actually could be for the chipset, to power the chipset, and that's probably right in range. Usually I think chipset's like 30 ohms, but I think this is a 3 and 5, so those should be infinite. If we put this actually in just regular ohms mode, we can see how many, let's see, K ohms, 10K, 7K, 6K. So it's filling up. There's capacitors on that. So, and then we do the other one. It's in the kilo ohms. But when we put it on beep mode, it's not trying to measure anything above like 300 ohms or something like that. So anyway, those two are looking fine. We're going to have very, very low resistance when we measure on any of the GPU and CPU. And so a lot of people will be measuring those and being like, oh, there's a short on that. Well, not really. So I'm going to measure here. We've got 12. Now 12 is probably correct for that. And we're gonna measure this one, 9. Here, I'm gonna put it in non-beep mode so you don't have to hear that. This one is 9 ohms. This one is 9 ohms because those are in parallel. And these are probably gonna be somewhere around 2, 1.5. Oh, there's that one's 8. I bet this one's 2. No, that one's 9, 9, 9. Wow, this one has higher resistance. Okay. So measuring that, we have all these as 9. So I'm assuming that these actually are together. This one's on its own here. And these are gonna be like almost 0, maybe like 0.03 or 4. Yeah, so all those are gonna be fine. All right, our main power rail, we didn't check that, but we know it's not shorted, but here, I'll do it in the microscope. It's gonna be hard to see. Our main power rail is gonna be somewhere around here. It's gonna probably be coming in through here. What I like to do is you can just test this current sense resistor, and we're in the mega ohms, which is perfect. What about this one? In the mega ohms, or the kilo ohms? Something high. So this is probably coming from the DC jack. It might be on this side, I don't know. Let's go ahead and plug in our charger at this point because we're not seeing a short on any of those power rails. All right, so I'm plugging it in and I'm gonna put it in voltage mode. We are pulling current. Let me feel the CPU real quick. And the CPU is not getting hot, okay? So nothing to worry about there. CPU and GPU are not getting hot. I just wanna see where the voltage is going here. So at 20 volts going in, 20 volts coming out, 20 volts coming out. So we got 20 volts all the way over here, 20 volts and 1.2 here. And I believe this current sense resistor is gonna be for the main power rail. This is the battery charge circuit. So this is gonna be the current sense resistor for the battery charge circuit. So that's fine. Let's see if our 3 and 5 volt are present. 3.3, and 5 volts. So we got our 3 and our 5. Now what were we looking for? What's this one? This is probably going to be our chipset, so 1.0. 0.8, that's kind of low. Maybe 0.8 is correct there. Maybe it's this one. 1.8. So we have our 1.8, we got our 1.0. Now it's another 5 volt. So now let's check this guy. This one has a little bit of liquid metal on here. Yeah, I'm going to have to clean off this liquid metal because if we start getting it everywhere, it's going to be dangerous. I see something else. Look at this, guys. Come on. God, oh, man. What is going on? I got to talk to this guy. Got to figure out what the heck he did. Do you guys see it? It's kind of hard to see in the camera, but okay. I'm going to zoom in. Ready? Here we go. What is that? I mean, I don't know how I saw it, but look at that. Do you see under this sticky? Why is there a broken capacitor there? Where does it go? It's a magic capacitor that just stuck under there. Oh, wait, is that a coil? I don't know if that's a capacitor or a coil or inductor. If it's an inductor, then we're definitely going to have some issues. It looks like it's one of those. Here, I'm going to put this off to the side and remember it, and then we'll try to find a spot to put it. I don't want to lose it, so just got to look around and see what's missing. I mean, we know we have something missing on the other side of the board because that component that was ripped off is on the other side. But how would it get on this side? Is this ripped? Was this supposed to be connected at one point and it's ripped? Or is that how it's supposed to go on? All right, let's look closely around here and see if we can see the missing component. This doesn't have any solder on it, so it's not going to go there. But it almost looks like it's one of these types of components that are in the middle between these VRAM. I need to ask this guy if he opened it up. I mean, is it all because somebody damaged it because they opened it again? I'm getting tired of having to fix these types of issues. And frankly, it's probably kind of boring too, if every single repair is going to be one that somebody damaged. Because like trying to hunt down a chip that someone ripped off a board, you know? It's because we have to look through all these little spots. All these little spots. I mean, I guess it could be from the other side of the board, maybe. But it was like in the middle of the board, on the other side of the board, so to me that doesn't make sense. Yeah, let's flip it over and compare the size. Actually, I'm going to clean off this liquid metal real quick so I don't get it everywhere when I flip it over, so I'll be right back. All right, much better. I got the liquid metal taken off there. Okay, so yeah, let's take a look here. I just want to see if that part matches the missing component here. Where was that? That was right in front of this connector, right? I mean, it's kind of a gouge. You can see the actual traces bent over. The piece just fly away. Hold on, I got to see if I can find this part. Well, I was going to try to compare the size of that component we found to this missing pad here, and when I went to go grab it, it flew away. So I don't know where it is. I can't find it. So, you know, I did determine that it was the same size as these other components here. It almost looks like it is exactly the same as one of these. So we're going to go ahead and try to use one of those to compare with. I do have a bad board here that we can actually take measurements and take a look at. Let's figure out what we have on that circuitry so we can actually see what it's supposed to look like. All right, so here's that connector, and so here's that component. It's just a capacitor, so that shouldn't matter because the resistor is actually what's going to be carrying some sort of voltage across. A capacitor is just acting more as a filter. But let's measure across there. I just want to see what measurement we're getting. Have it in ohms mode, measuring open. Measuring 16 ohms across that. This could actually be on the GPU. Does it have 16 ohms? Or it could be on something else. Let's measure to see if we're getting 16 ohms when we measure on this board. Because the odds are we should be getting 16 ohms still, even with that capacitor missing. 16 ohms. So, you know, the capacitor is just acting more of a filter out any spikes or anything like that. So it's not something that's crucial for the functionality of this board. But seeing that, and then the other component that we found on the other side of the board, which could be the actual one that came off of here, leads me to believe that there's something else that's probably ripped off the board. I need to call him or her. I need to figure out if they opened it up and were trying to like upgrade the system and then that's when it broke, versus if it was just playing and then just failed. Because to me it looks like somebody opened it up, but it could be that they opened it up after the fact because it wasn't working and they're trying to fix it and then they're breaking it further. So that would be something that's helpful to know, because we are seeing all the power rails, not all of them. I mean, we need to actually measure this one because I've had this one be not work also. So let's do that real quick. Okay, I got the power plugged in. Let's measure this voltage rail right here, 0.12. I think that's a little low. I believe that's a little low. Let's see what the input is. 0.1. We've got 20 volts coming in through here. This chip's going to create this power rail, and the output's only 0.13. So that actually might be our bad power rail. Let's measure it in continuity mode. There it is. We do have our short right here. So 0.03. I'll turn off the beeping so you don't hear it. So we're pretty much a dead short, 0.02, because if you put my probes together, it should be right around 0.02 also. So 0.02, so the wires have some sort of resistance in it too. So 0.02 is a dead short, so we have something that's dead short. Now, is it this chip or is it a capacitor that's on here? We don't know which one it is. We don't know what it is. We can physically look around and see if we see something, because all these capacitors, I believe, are on that power rail. It's probably going to be one of these capacitors, but none of them look discolored. And let's look on the other side of the board too while we're at it. I just want to look at these parts while we're on this side. Okay, let's flip it over and look at the other side. Let's see. All right, so we have these components. Oh, that one's a little bit different, discolored, but it's fine. We have these three. That's fine, that's fine. All right, so I have a feeling that those ripped components that we found are probably just the aftermath. I bet somebody opened this thing up and was trying to figure out why it's not working. So we do have a short right here, and I don't know which component it is, and so we're gonna have to actually inject voltage. We looked around. I can't physically see anything wrong with the board, so the next step would actually be to inject some current and then look at it under the thermal camera. So let me get the thermal camera set up real quick. All right, the thermal camera is set up now. The way I have it set up here is a FLIR Pro, which is actually made to hook on a cell phone. I just have it mounted to the bottom of the microscope here, have some wires coming up, and have it hooked onto my cell phone over here. All right, any of the equipment I'm using, I have links inside the description, affiliate links that you can buy the same microscope, or you can buy the thermal camera or tools or anything like that. I have it all linked down there below. All right, so we have our thermal camera set up. The area that we're concerned with is on this side of the board. And here it is. And so let's just plug in the power. I just want to see if we actually see any heat over here, because sometimes that will just kind of point it out. And we do see some heat right in that area. Let's look a little closer at that area. Let's put some alcohol on here because I don't know which one it is. Is it? Yep, it's right there. It's that chip that has that mark on it. It's this one right here. There's a short across that. So we did find our bad component without actually having to inject any voltage, but we did have to use our infrared camera. You can kind of see there's a crack here. Now here's the issue with this. Changing this component out is going to be very difficult because of the tight area that it's in, and it's very tiny. Like here's the tip. Here's my finger, right? So we're going to try to get this out, and then we're going to see how we're going to be able to get it replaced. I need to protect all of these plastic parts around here. So I'm going to put Kapton tape all over everything I can, and then we'll see if we can get it protected good enough, and then we'll see if we can get that piece replaced. All right, so I have this protected here. I put Kapton tape on here, and what I use, this is high temperature tape, but I actually use a 2 mil, because the main issue that we're having here is that we have all these components around here. So we have the 2 memory slots, and then we also have the NVMe slots. So it's a very tight tolerances to get down in here. Let me show you how I'm gonna remove this. Well, for some reason, the camera stopped recording, so sorry about that. I didn't get to show you how I got this off, but basically, I had to use low temperature hot air and this fine tip, and I just kind of worked the chip up on either side. and pulled that off. So I was able to get that off, no problem. And let's see if the short is gone now. So if we measure on this inductor, perfect. Yeah, so we're no longer measuring almost a dead short there. So that cracked capacitor was the issue. So now that we have that removed, let's go ahead and get that replaced, and that should actually fix up this board. We still probably should replace that other capacitor too. So we'll go ahead and replace both those capacitors, and then we'll boot the system up and test. All right, first I'm going to just replace this ripped off chip real quick. Let me add some solder to this pad. And we'll come in with a new capacitor, 1 microfarad. All right, perfect. And then now we just got to replace this other one. All right, so we have the new capacitor here. We're gonna have to use some hot air to heat the area, but we just need to set this in place and just use a soldering iron. Yeah, this tip just isn't hot enough. It's too fine of a tip. So let me, we'll add some hot air real quick. So we're only at 300 degrees C. Remember this plastic, all these connectors melt at like 260, so as long as we don't get too much above 260, we should be okay. And now let's try this again. Yeah, this is quite tricky getting down in here. It's actually pretty frustrating. All right, finally got that installed. It was a little tight, you know, trying to solder in these spots right here, and you can't use a lot of heat. But so that's installed. So now we can reassemble and we can test and see if we fix this board. Yeah, that was an absolute pain in the butt in order to put that capacitor in there, but we got that in there. The short is gone. I'm going to reassemble real quick and we can test. Installing this PTM7950, which can be a pain because I was just trying to get this extra plastic shielding off. There we go. There's one. I'll do the other one. Just make an imprint and then cut it. A lot of people have done the performance testing. They said it's pretty close to the liquid metal, so I'd rather just not even put liquid metal on here because that is such a dangerous substance. It gets everywhere. It's hard to deal with. And for me, who has to deal with taking these computers apart every day, I'd rather not have to deal with it. Got that installed. The heat sinks are all cleaned out. Let's get it installed back into the system. All right, I got the motherboard reinstalled. Time to test, moment of truth. Were we able to resolve the issue? Well, the short's gone, so it should turn on. We got 2 amps being pulled now, 2.82, 3 amps. That's a good sign. It would never get that high before. It was only getting up to about 1 amp. It's going to take a little longer for the first startup because it's going to be a CMOS reset. Okay, it just turned back off. Great. Is it going to turn back on? Okay, good. Came back on, 3 amps, 3.21. I do have the battery plugged in, so it may be charging the battery with some of this current. 4 amps, 4.71. All right, so we're up to 5 amps. So this is looking good. And it turned off again. And it turned back on. All right, perfect. That's what we want. We want to go through this cycle. It's a startup process cycle. And it hasn't given us a error code yet. So that means that the power rail failure code is gone. That means that we fixed that issue, but we're just trying to figure out if we have some other issue now, especially since we noticed that there were some other components that were ripped off the board. Well, now it's just sitting at 3 amps. So I'm wondering what else could be the issue here. Anyway, that power rail that was shorted was actually for the DDR5, but we know that that's working now. Hey, it just turned off again. Okay. Are we still going through a startup process? This is a very long startup process. It's kind of stressful. Anybody else stressing out with me? And we've got something going on here. Are we gonna get our Alienware screen? Come on. Where is it? It shut off again. This is a little strange. You usually shouldn't go through this mini startup, turning on and off, turning on and off. I think I just saw the screen flash. And we got an Alienware screen. Oh my gosh, that was stressful. Were you guys stressed out too? That took forever. Oh my gosh, okay. All right, we got our Alienware screen, perfect. So we did resolve that issue. Time and date not set, so it was going through a CMOS reset. Man, I'm relieved. I was just like, I don't know. It's like looking around a board trying to find where somebody might have ripped something off, because I think that one component that was ripped off that we found that we replaced was probably post. It was after the machine stopped working and they were taking it apart trying to find the issue. So I'm definitely relieved. I bet you are too. I'm sure you're going to be commenting that you were stressed out too. Yeah, so this ended up being an interesting one, I think, actually, because yeah, it was just kind of a simple shorted capacitor. It was on one of the lower power rails, so therefore the machine would come on, give you a power rail failure, but where it was located made it very difficult to actually change out. So it wasn't like you could easily just go in, use some hot air, take it off. So that was a little complicated. And then we did find that other chip that was just kind of like in some area that we were like, okay, well, I don't know why that thing is ripped off, but I guess let's replace that. So the system is working now. I'll do full diags, and this will wrap this one up. And I'd love to know your thoughts. Hey, and make sure to subscribe. And thanks for watching.
I saved another laptop.